Good afternoon, everyone.
Hello.
Hello.
We have 1 minute before 5 o'clock. Jennifer, are you going to tell me when we're ready to go, just so that I know that we have our quorum? It looks like
We do. We have 5 members present. I had heard from Mr. Smeal will not be able to attend today. We haven't heard from Ms. Kameh, so we're waiting to see if she joins, but currently there are 5. We are live streaming and recording, so anytime you want to get started, it looks like it's just turned 5 o'clock.
Okay, thank you. It is 5 o'clock on Wednesday, October 7th, 2020. This is the Zoning Board of Appeals for Jamestown. And at this time, it looks like we have 5 members present. That would be a quorum. It takes 4 votes in the affirmative in order to approve area or use variances. We have 2 petitions. The first petition has 2 area variances, and I'm going to ask Jennifer to read that variance request, if you would.
Sure. The petition of Deborah Liddell, 16 Woodridge Avenue, Jamestown, New York, 14701, for 2 area variances to 1, reconstruct a 24 by 24 foot garage with an 8 foot by 24 foot roof extension on an existing footprint on the north and east edges of current building location. And 2, for a garage exceeding the maximum allowable 720 square feet on parcel 386.12-9-23, located at 16 Woodridge Avenue, Jamestown, New York, owned by Deborah Liddell in an R1 zone. Section 300-0317E, accessory structures. In any R district, no part of an accessory structure shall be nearer than 5 feet to a side lot line or rear lot line. The proposed is 3.64 feet on the rear property line and 1.94 feet on the side property line. Section 300-0317F, accessory structures. In any R district, no accessory building shall exceed 720 square feet in area and have a dimension that exceeds 36 feet. The proposed is 768 square feet.
Thank you. Is Deborah or someone representing her present?
I'm Deborah, and this is my fiance Lou. He'll probably be doing most of the speaking on the dimensions and stuff.
Okay. Deborah or Lou, either one of you, usually what we do is allow the petitioner to explain in a very brief amount of time a little bit more about their need for the variances. And you did complete the area variance applications, 2 of them, which details what our board is looking at in terms of why you need those. And if you would like to just explain a little bit more about your project, the garage, usually the members of our board either physically goes to the site and drives by and checks it out first, but we like to hear from the petitioner a little bit more about the request.
Okay, we currently have a 1-car garage, and we actually have 3 vehicles, and we like, one of them is a sports car. It's an old Corvette. And the reason we want this size garage is that the Corvette will be mainly stowed in the garage, so we can use that space. And we also would like to keep our cars off the street as much as possible, especially in the winter time. And quite often we've had to juggle our cars around back and forth because we have a driveway that it's only 1 car width wide. And so we're constantly doing that with the Corvette especially. And so we'd like to have that stored in the garage probably 95% of the time. And I also have a motorcycle, so that's the reason we want the garage to be the size that it is. The overhang that's going to face the western part of the building, we're just going to use that as mainly an outdoor like patio to, you know, sit outside, and it's like a back porch essentially. We've talked with all of our neighbors. They are all in favor of it and don't have any problems with, you know, the size and the location of it. So that's our main intention right there. You have anything to add?
No, just we also, his daughter lives with us when she's not attending St. Bonaventure, and she has a vehicle as well. So it's another vehicle that we would have on the road.
Okay, thank you. At this time, we allow members of the zoning board to ask questions of the petitioner. So I'm going to open up the floor for members of the board.
Lou, Steve Sawyer, you're going to use the foundation for two sides of the new structure? Is that correct?
The plan was to keep the existing back and side wall, so we don't encroach on our small yard space the way it is. You know, we had spoken with both the adjacent neighbors and they were fine with it. And so, and it also would make it easier on not having to move our driveway and have wasted space to the right of the garage. Essentially, we'd have 5 feet, you know, if we moved it over 5 feet, that's kind of, in our opinion, kind of wasted space, because yeah, we would mow it there, but you know, it's 5 feet where it would just kind of be wasted space. So we're hoping to have the existing driveway maintained in that direction. So when you come off the street, it would be a straight shot right into the garage versus having to veer it more toward the left as you're facing the garage.
And if you haven't been by the house, there is no way to move the driveway over. It's against the house and the property line.
Okay, so then the other two walls will be a pole type structure?
Yes, the whole structure is going to be a pole barn type structure.
Okay.
But
And the
in back-
diagram, go ahead, I'm sorry.
The existing back and right, we wanted to maintain where they are currently.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. And the exterior finishes that you're planning on, has there been any modification? It looks like it's a metal sheathed building and
Yep.
a metal roof.
Yes, exactly.
And does that overhang on the east side of the property, does that overhang entirely on your property? Hard to tell here. Is it a foot overhang on
I
that
think it's
side, or is it less than that?
1.34, I believe, or 1.94.
Yes.
Yeah, and it would be, you know, the water dripping would still be on, I think it would be right just inside of our edge of the property.
And that water off of that metal roof, is that being captured at all, either at the roof line or with any drainage on that side of the property? I
We
don't
didn't
see any
plan-
gutters on the building.
Right, we didn't plan on any currently. I mean, if it's an issue, we could probably add gutters to that side and run it off. So,
Okay. Larry, is that a concern of ours?
Well, usually I work with the owners as it's going up and getting done.
Okay,
I mean, that would have been one thing I would have suggested if it looked like it was causing an issue. I mean, I wouldn't want them spending the money on a new building and then undermining it with their own roof water. So,
sure. Okay. All right. And doesn't give you much area to do any maintenance on that east side of the property, but being a metal sheathed building, you wouldn't need much maintenance.
yeah, we're hoping. I mean, we certainly won't need to paint it or do any of that kind of stuff to it. I think it's a good design.
All right. And that bump out on the west side, is that 8 feet, or I read 6 feet someplace? Was it 6 and then went to 8 feet?
I think we originally wanted it 8 feet and it was slightly over the overall dimensions.
Okay.
So we were hoping 8 feet would give us, you know, a nice room and, you know, it'd kind of be covered for, you know, if there's rain or whatnot and we're out there in the summertime.
That is a nice addition to a garage for wood storage or
Yep.
Gas grill, you know, a lot of different things. But it looks like that's what puts you over the required square footage of
Right.
720 square feet. So
Right.
the square footage that we add up, adding both structures, is just marginally over that of 768 square feet.
Yep.
Okay, and no storage up above the first the roof
Nah,
line.
I don't think we're gonna do anything up above that. So it'd be, you know,
Okay. So we can pretty much, the plans that you've submitted to us, the drawings, looks like maybe a 412 or 612 pitch on that roof, but there'll be no storage up above that. There's no loft
Correct.
storage.
correct. And I wanted to just introduce you. This is my neighbor, Patrick.
Hi, guys.
Hello.
Neighbor on the east side, the one where the shorter
Okay,
space is between the border of the land. Anything you want to say, Patrick?
Patrick, can you give us your full
the dog,
name
yeah.
and your address first?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I'm at 12 Widrig. Is that the dog? Yeah, I'm at 12 Woodring. My name's Patrick Griffith, and I just wanted to let you guys know that I don't have any objections. I think Lou is great, and the garage is going to be really nice.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Just
Any
one
other
question?
questions?
No, oh, I'm sorry.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Go ahead, Steve. Can you
Right,
ask?
just one other question. It sounds like from your description of how you're going to use it is just for car and motorcycle storage. We're not doing any car, significant car repairs or
No.
restoration or machine shop. It's all just used for car and motorcycle or toy storage.
Exactly.
Is that
Yep.
correct? Okay.
Yep.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Other questions from members of the board? Okay, seeing none, I would ask Ms. Williams, is there any correspondence that's been entered in for these two area variances? You're muted. Okay,
I do have 2 emails to read. I would also like to note that Ms. Kamei is here. She's joined by audio only. She sent me an email to let me know she was having some issues. So she is here with us. The first email that I have is from Douglas Scotchmer at 19 Woodrig Avenue. Hi, Larry. I'm writing to express my support for the proposed enlarged garage at 16 Woodrig Avenue. The space between 16 and 12 Woodrig is tight, so moving the garage to the west would put it out of alignment with the existing driveway. My hope would be that the larger garage would reduce on-street parking, making plowing, maintaining, and navigating Woodrig Avenue easier. It has seemed in recent years there are many more cars on the street than there used to be. Thank you for your consideration of this matter. And then I have a second email that I believe is Mr. Griffith, who we just heard from. He writes, "Hi Larry, this is Patrick Griffith at 12 Woodrig Avenue. I want to drop you a line and let you know that I don't have any objections to Lou building the garage next door. He is a great neighbor and an asset to the community. Please let me know if there's anything I can be of assistance with." And then he lists his phone number as well. And he had mentioned his address was 12 Woodrig.
thank you very much, Ms. Williams. At this point, we look for clarifying questions from members of the board. Are there any other questions? As the board chair, I don't usually ask too many questions, but I did have a question on the fencing. There's fencing on that property. Is that fence, does that fence belong to you or is that your neighbors?
That belongs to my rear neighbor.
Okay, thank you.
And she have spoken with her and she is happy to have us build the garage.
Okay. At this time, we would be looking for a motion for 2 area variances to be approved from the petition of Deborah Liddell at 16 Woodrid Avenue in Jamestown. Is there anyone who's willing to make the motion based on the area variance requests?
I would make that motion. I think on balance, the variance request checks most of the legal boxes. So I would make a motion that we approve the petitioner's request to build a 24 by 24 garage, detached garage, and attached 8 by 24 foot bump out as the petitioner has requested in his petition.
Thank you, Mr. Sorg. Is there a second for the motion?
I'll second it.
Thank you very much. We have a motion on the floor that's been seconded to approve 2 area variance requests. Is there anyone on the board who has questions on the motion? Seeing none, Ms. Williams, would you take the roll, please?
Ms.
I'm
Kamei?
sorry, take the motion and ask for their approval, either aye or nay.
Sure. Ms. Kamei?
Yes, aye.
Mrs. Jones?
Aye.
Mr. Kenyon?
Aye.
Mr. Panabianco?
Aye.
Mr. Sorg?
Aye.
And Chairwoman DeTanto?
Aye. The vote is 6-0. That means both area variance requests have been approved. Your next step would be to talk with Mr. Scalise and make sure that you have everything in order to go forward.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're welcome. At this point, we would move on then to our second petition request. Ms. Liddell and Lou, you can drop off of the Zoom session if you'd like.
All right, great.
And
Thank
we'll
you.
move on. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you for your time.
Ms. Williams, if you would read the second request, please.
Yes. The petition of First Lutheran Church of Jamestown, New York for an area variance to construct a handicap drop-off with parking in the exterior side yard of the existing church on parcel 387.42-2-1, located at 120 Chandler Street, Jamestown, New York, owned by First Lutheran Church of Jamestown, New York in an R2 zone. Section 300-0502F. Setback. 1. In all LC or R districts, all automotive use areas, not including driveways, shall be set back at least 10 feet from all property lines. The proposed is 1 foot on the north property line, Chandler Street, and 3 feet on the west property line, Center Street.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. And before we get into this variance request, I just want to note for the record, please, that I am a member of First Lutheran Church in Jamestown. I would have no financial benefit by seeing anything done with this area variance request. Since we have 6 members present, I would probably be abstaining at this point, and I would allow for the conversation to continue, and I'll try to make this as fair as possible for all involved. At this point, I would like to see if there's somebody who would like to speak on behalf of the petitioner.
That would be me.
Okay.
Thank you.
Go ahead, please introduce yourself and give us your full name and address. And you can give us, again, a brief overview of the need for the area variance request.
Thank you for hearing our petition. My name is Jim Wahlberg, W-A-H-L-B-E-R-G. I live at 3572 Mary Ellen Drive in Bemis Point. I am the secretary of the property committee at First Lutheran, and I'd like to clarify one of the requests in the petition, if I could. I don't know if you have copies of the plan, but on the Chandler Street side, we do not need a variance of any kind. We have plenty of room. The architect's drawing assumed that the sidewalk was the property line and drew 10 feet, and he modified it to 9 and 1. But we don't need, we can move it back 11 feet, which would be within the variance and have plenty of room for that last parking space. So with that clarification, the parking that we're requesting started with a plan some 9 years ago for an expanded look for First Lutheran Church that included campus lighting. It included handicap parking. It included this drive up. The big plan was wishful thinking. So we, 4 years ago, decided to go with an idea for just the drive up and the handicap parking. Reason for that is relatively simple. Our handicap parking that we have right now is across Center Street. I measured it the other day, and it's approximately 320 feet from the first parking space to the anticipated drop-off space. Just out of perspective, I tried to think of how I could put that into terms that people could understand. And during football season, that would be like being on the 25-yard line, and your goal would be to go to the goal line. A long way for people that have mobility issues, a long way for people that are dropping off or caring for children. And so we decided that plus the handicap parking that's available along the street, which is 60 to 90 feet away from the drop-off point, faces a couple of issues with people. The terrace sloping to the street, the crowning of the road, and the drop-off being in the gutter, basically, poses issues, especially seasonally with leaves and snow for those who have mobility challenges. So the drawing that we made has gone through a lot of iterations and has basically come back to an original concept by one of our congregation who has passed away, a professional architect, to put handicap spaces into the area that would be adjacent to the drop-off. We wanted to make sure that these spaces were ADA approved as far as spacing, that we had one van space, which the ADA says you should have, regardless of the size of your spaces as a church, and 2 regular spaces. That's the drawing and the proposal that we have before you today. In order to do that, we had 2 choices. One was parallel parking, and the contractor looked at me and said, do you remember your driver's test? And I said, well, that was 46 years ago, so that's a little long for me to remember, but parallel parking terrified me. If you're a handicapped driver, I can't imagine you attempting parallel parking. The contractor said, if you can give me 5 feet or more, I can put diagonal spaces in, which will give you more clearance and safety in the back as you back up. It will be easier for those who are handicapped to get in and out. The sight lines will be better. So that's what we asked our architect to draw, and that is what's before you today. I can give you a variety of reasons that we wanted as a church, but really what we need is the important part. We need a place that's safe for the elderly, and I'm one of them, congregation that our church has evolved to. Family drop-offs, funerals and weddings, just basically inclement weather, which we will put a cover on this after it's completed. The minor things are deliveries, access to our store, which is all proceeds to go to charity store. And then we have a number of events that First Lutheran holds for the community. A cappella presents their Vespers in our church, JBC graduation, and a variety of other things that daily we have at the church as a community function. The nice thing about this is it doesn't really affect a busy time on either Chandler and Center, which neither of them are terribly busy, but most of the events that happen at our church, whether they be church related or community related, either happen from mid-morning to mid-afternoon, weekends, or evenings. And that wouldn't conflict with, for instance, Jamestown High School uses our parking lot as a parking area, and we're glad to provide that to them. But if they drive, they would come early in the morning and they would leave late afternoon. And those are the least likely times that this would be used. But it would be a great benefit to us, and we think to the community if we had it for those other times. I guess that's probably more than you wanted to hear, but I'd be glad to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wahlberg. And yes, we do have, each board member was sent the modified drawing, which shows that there can be 10 feet of setback on Chandler and the request for just a 3-foot setback on Center Street. I take it all of you do have that, so you were able to review that in advance. And now it is time for us to ask, to allow board members to ask any questions that you may have. Are there any questions from members of the board?
I have several questions. Thanks for that presentation, Mr. Wahlberg. I appreciate you've already answered a few of my questions. It certainly looks like a no-brainer. There is certainly a need for some on-site parking. This is a small lot for such a beautiful church and other improvements that you have attached to it. You said that you started this vision 9 years ago. It was been modified, and 4 years ago, you scaled it back to just to have this drop-off area and handicap parking. What has transpired, I guess, that's my curious question, over the last 4 years? Have you had conversation with the city of Jamestown, any departments over those last 4 years? And why has it taken 4 years to get to this point?
We've had very positive conversations with the city. The original plan was deemed not appropriate because of the exit onto Chandler Street. That has evolved back into the exit onto Chandler Street after conferring with a number of other city officials that decided, yeah, maybe that should work. We were asking to modify the trees on Center Street, which the city wasn't terribly excited about. And we pointed out that the sidewalks, especially the one as far the east on or south on Center Street was concerned, there's a very large, beautiful tree that has heaved the sidewalk approximately 12 inches. It's been covered with asphalt, but if we are going to put an entrance into that area, we would have had to cut down into those roots in order to put an acceptable sidewalk in and accommodate any handicapped persons that were walking in that area or trying to cross that. And we were willing to modify both of the other ones. This plan will, there are two other trees involved, by the way, will modify both those other trees, the root problem with the permission of the city. We will pay for that. And the real problem child, I call it the roller coaster tree, will be eliminated. And that will be a nice, level, safe sidewalk for both the community and for the church. So it took a number of changes in plan. One plan was submitted and approved, but turned out the plan when we were going to dig didn't fit the site. So that was a complication. And then we proceeded from there. It's just been long and hard and dragged out. And I wish it was faster, but it's not. So.
How many services do you offer on a Sunday morning?
2. We offer currently a 9 o'clock and a 10 o'clock. Usually it's 9 and 11 when COVID-19 is not a factor.
Okay, and how do you envision the traffic flow in and out? I see where there's the ingress is from Center Street and exit on to Chandler Street. But once you're in your parking area, tell me what you envision there with cars entering that parking area. Will there be attendants that will assist automobile drivers that are coming into that area, indicating where the drop off is? It's quite narrow, only 30 feet. It's over 120 feet probably in length, and it goes from 20 feet down to 12 feet at Chandler Street. But how do you envision cars coming in and out on a rainy Sunday morning, or for a cappella or funerals? I know the traffic congestion there is quite hectic when you have those large events.
Right. I'll take funerals first, even though it was last in your question. Funerals currently are serviced in front of the church on Chandler Street. Sometimes it's not an issue, but sometimes it is. We had a police officer that was buried out of our church, and it was a huge traffic problem that the Jamestown Police Department was wonderful enough to take care of. We would envision that we could get 2 cars, well, 1 line of cars, obviously, to drop off at curbside, and 2 cars behind that as you arrive. You would have enough room to pull another car in and pull into these diagonal parking spaces. We didn't design it to really drop off 2 at a time, but I guess you could if you didn't need a whole lot of time to get from your car to the curb. The exit was designed as a 1-car exit so that we wouldn't have cars clogging that up and having to wait. I'll be frank with you, the need is there. It is not profound. I don't expect that we'll have 20 people that need a handicap space. I anticipate that, from knowing the congregation, that we will have at least 3 that should be parking there. When you get to a certain age, you want to feel that you don't have to be in a parking spot, a handicap space, but we know that we all reach that age when we should be. We will assist people getting out at the drop-off point. if we're allowed, we will valet park any car that needs that. And we have volunteers that have already volunteered for that. In fact, we have raised, without a fundraising effort, enough money to pay for our second estimate. We're working on the third one, which is a little higher. Prices seem to go up as time goes on. But I don't envision there's a lot of, quote, traffic, unquote. The convenience and the availability of it. When we got our church reviewed 9 years ago, they had one complaint of First Lutheran, and that was accessibility for handicapped. Just because you had to walk at least 60 feet,
Sure.
and many, many more feet in most cases.
When the traffic exits your parking area, where would you anticipate those cars going? Would they then go south on Center Street and then enter your parking area? Or would they go out the Foot Avenue and enter the parking area off of a Foot? I'm just trying to think how much activity with pedestrian traffic crossing from your parking lots, and then cars going north and south on Center Street. But where would you anticipate those cars going after leaving your parking lot and probably heading west on Chandler Street?
If I understand, they're going to exit on Chandler, and they have an option to go left to Foot or right towards Windsor.
Yep.
And depending on where you live, obviously you would take that option. We would be glad to have someone assist in that at curbside after services.
So I'm thinking with the drop off, not going home, but after the drop off, after somebody was to drop somebody off that had special needs or it was inclement weather, where would they then go for parking for the church for the church service?
They would turn left on Chandler Street and go to our parking lot that the high school students use off Foot Avenue.
So would they go down Center Street and then go through your parking area and in order to get over to where the high school students park, or would they go out onto Foot Avenue to do that? I guess I bring that up because there's no stop sign at that corner of Center and Chandler Street. And some of our neighbors in that neighborhood include 2 senior housing projects, one on Crane, one on Chandler Street. We've got the Jamestown High School, all within a 9-iron shot. And the Resource Center has a special needs housing just down the street on Chandler Street for eight residents. And just kind of thinking out loud for you, I know at many of our T streets in Jamestown, there are not stop signs, but I guess with adding this additional apron with traffic coming out, I'm just trying to figure out, and maybe Mr. Lehman and the planning department would need to take a look at that. But is that traffic going back down Center Street to enter your parking areas, or are they going from Chandler Street out to Foot Avenue to enter your parking areas? I guess is my question.
There are 2 entrances on Chandler Street into our parking lot, so you wouldn't get to Foot Avenue. In fact, we discourage the Foot Avenue apron as being an entrance. It is actually an exit. So they would go out and go a half a block and turn into our parking lot. They could go down Center Street, but it's marked no parking, and that would defeat the purpose of them going that way.
So you don't see any issues in the traffic flow after thinking this through and visiting with the various city departments that you've had conversations with?
Well, of course, I don't see any issue with the traffic, but
Okay.
I don't think the use is going to be as much as we anticipate. I really expect, obviously, those that have mobility problems, and a lot of families, not a lot, but a fair amount of families have young children that they would want to load. in the pickup and drop off. Those are usually first service, where the elderly who would use the handicap parking are generally second service. Not 100%, but
Like a sign, I don't see a sign on, there's a sign on the property now, but I don't see one on this diagram. Will you, you'll have to relocate your sign, and if so, where would you relocate that?
if we relocated, and there's a real debate whether we need the signs. We do have a sign that is out on Foot Avenue, an electronic sign. And quite frankly, if I had my druthers, I would not put a sign on there. The one sign is very confusing, and that's the big one down near the right-hand side of the drawing, down near the chapel. And the other one is, I guess it could be upgraded, but it doesn't serve much of a purpose. We hope that when we put the awning up over the sidewalk from the drop-off to the church, we can incorporate signage into that.
Okay, and I don't see any lighting on this this sketch. Is there, you're anticipating putting lighting in that parking lot, I'm sure?
We're anticipating that we will, with the contractor, dig the proper trenches that are required to put in, now the word skips me, it's conduit, and pull wires to two areas. One would be down near the entrance, and the other one would be down near the exit for future lighting.
Great, well, that's, thank you very much for answering those questions. I appreciate it, Mr. Wahlberg.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sorg. Are there other questions from members of the board? I don't see any, but it may be an opportunity, Mr. Scalise, for you to answer the concern about lighting there. And is there any future variance requests that would be required if lighting was added?
No, there wouldn't be, but we would like to just get with the church and just review it, because we don't want any hazards being created, you know, vehicles driving by, pedestrians, or anything along those lines. But it all depends on what kind of lighting we do. If we do a low bollard type style, which probably would be appropriate, it would light things up enough, but it wouldn't overwhelm the neighborhood and look like, you know, 50-yard line at Rich Stadium. But that's something we can get with, you know, Mr. Wahlberg and the members of the church. So before they actually start laying concrete and so forth, we can have the placement or concept of a placement resolved before, you know, it goes, so they'll know where to put the conduit, what size conduit, and so forth.
Okay, so we would allow that to happen. It's just part of the planning process as they move forward.
Yes, correct.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or clarifications from members of the board? Seeing none, Ms. Williams, is there any correspondence on this request?
Did not receive any.
Thank you. And again, just to reiterate the clarification that there is just one area variance request, and that is for the Center Street side, that there would be 3 foot of setback and not 10, correct?
Well, might I suggest that you actually ask for it and receive it? You don't have to use it, but if for some reason we need to move something a foot when they discover something, I mean, it's really not going to matter, I believe, but you know, may as well ask for it since it's already on the table versus you don't have to use it. But it might be nice to have it.
I
Okay,
agree, thank you.
so that we'll leave it as it is originally requested, that there would be setback less than 10 feet on both the Chandler and the Center Street sides.
I would suggest that, yes.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Scalise. Thank you, Mr. Wahlberg. At this point, I would be looking for a motion on the area variance request of First Lutheran Church at 120 Chandler Street for setback restrictions that are less than the 10 feet that are required as part of the zoning code on both Chandler Street and Center Street. Is there anyone willing to make a motion?
I'll make a motion
Thank you,
for approval. Yes,
Mr. Kenyon.
yes.
That we would approve that area variance request. Is there a second to that motion?
second that motion.
Ms. Kiame is willing to make the second. Thank you. Any questions on the motion? If not, clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Ms. Kame,
Aye.
Mrs. Jones,
Aye.
Mr. Kenyon,
Aye.
Mr. Panabianco,
Aye.
Mr. Sorg,
Aye.
and Chair DeTanto.
I am going to abstain. That would mean that the vote was 5 ayes, 1 abstention, and no nays. That gives enough of a vote in order for this to go forward. Thank you very much to the board members. Mr. Wahlberg, you can now proceed again to meet with Mr. Scalise and get what you are needing to move forward with this project.
Thank you very much.
And thank you, board members. Seeing no other agenda items, we will adjourn at 5:40. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.